My name is Elisa. I'm 59 years old, and I clean offices for a living. Last Thursday, at exactly 6:42 in the morning, I walked into the executive building like I always do, pushing my cart and humming quietly so I wouldn't disturb the men in suites, already glued to their screens. But something felt off. The elevators weren't working, and the top floor, where the CEO had his glass palace, was buzzing like a beehive. Men with badges and grim faces rushed in and out. I overheard whispers. It's encrypted. Nothing's working. They've called in every expert. Even the investors are panicking. I kept my head down. Just a cleaner, right? When I got to the ninth floor, the scent of expensive coffee and panic hung in the air. A trembling assistant with red eyes nearly bumped into my cart. Sorry, she muttered. The system's down, all of it. They said 22 cybersecurity experts failed to fix it. 22? I paused at the door. I knew what system they meant. 6 years ago, my son had built a backup protocol for that exact software. He showed me the interface on my old laptop, just so I could understand what he did. It's like cleaning, he joked. You just follow the flow. He passed away 2 years later. And now, here I was, facing that same screen. Should I say something? Or keep scrubbing floors? Ma'am, you can't be in here, a man barked, snapping me out of it. But I was already walking toward the monitor. Something in me whispered, "This is your moment." The office smelled like wealth. Polished marble floors, walls lined with abstract art, and chairs no one dared to sit on unless invited. I'd cleaned that space for 7 years, but that day, it felt like I was seeing it for the first time. At the center of the chaos stood Mr. Lansing, the CEO, tall, early 60s with eyes like ice. He wasn't used to things going wrong. His suit cost more than a year of my salary, but that morning, he looked lost. Reboot failed. The failsafe didn't trigger, someone muttered beside him. He turned to a group of younger men. So what now? Sit here and wait while the entire trading database bleeds out? One of them stammered. We're trying a patch through the mirror server. I couldn't help myself. I stepped forward. I think I can help, I said. Dead silence. Mr. Lansing blinked. What? I've seen that system before. My son designed part of it years ago. He showed me something. He frowned. You're the cleaner? Yes, sir. The room chuckled, politely. Not mockery, just disbelief. But I didn't flinch. I walked to the monitor. Fingers trembling, I clicked the console tab, navigated through the settings my son had once shown me, and typed a command. 3 minutes. That's all it took. The screen blinked, systems restored. And then, cheers. The same people who barely looked at me before were clapping. Someone even whistled. Mr. Lansing stepped closer. His voice dropped. How did you know to do that? I swallowed. I listen, and I remember. He stared at me for a second longer than necessary, then nodded. Everyone out. I need a word with Miss Elisa. Elisa, stay. As the others cleared the room, I stood awkwardly by the desk, still holding my gloves. Mr. Lansing walked to the window, hands behind his back, silent for a long while. Finally, he turned. You just saved us millions, maybe billions, he said. And yet, I don't even know your last name. It's Ruiz. Elisa Ruiz. He nodded, then asked the question I wasn't ready for. Why are you cleaning floors with a mind like that? I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. Because after my son died, I didn't care about much else. He paused, something shifting behind his stern expression. Then he reached into a drawer and tossed a card onto the desk. My assistant will set up a meeting. I want you consulting on system security, starting tomorrow. I froze. Was this real? Before I could answer, his phone rang. He picked it up, grunted a few orders, then glanced back at me. You're dismissed for today, Elisa. Full pay, of course. That night, I sat in my one-bedroom apartment, staring at the card. My heart was racing. I should have felt excited, but all I felt was guilt. This opportunity wasn't mine. It belonged to my son. He'd spent years fighting for recognition, for a chance. The system he designed had been buried by corporate politics. And now, here I was, offered a seat at the table because I pressed a few buttons he'd taught me. I picked up his photo from the shelf. His smile still hurt to look at. I don't know what to do, I whispered. A line he used to say came to me like a whisper. God lifts the humble and brings down the proud. That night, I cried, not from pain, from the weight of the door that had finally opened. The next morning, I arrived 2 hours early. I wore the same shoes I cleaned floors in, but now I was walking into the boardroom. A young woman named Donna greeted me. She was the CEO's assistant, sharp and fast-talking. She handed me a visitor badge and smiled politely, though her eyes said, "What's she doing here?" Inside, the room was full. Executives, analysts, bank advisors. They were debating protocols, throwing around words like investment breach and data instability. No one noticed me slip in until Mr. Lansing raised his hand. "This is Elisa Ruiz," he said, his voice cutting the air. She fixed in 3 minutes what 22 certified experts could not. From this point on, I want her insight before we greenlight any structural decision. Murmurs filled the room. Someone whispered, "She's not even certified." Another added, "What's next? The janitor running the hedge fund?" I felt a sting in my chest, but I didn't lower my gaze. Mr. Lansing turned to me. "Elisa, you've earned a voice here. What do you see in our system?" I swallowed hard, then pointed to the screen. "You've built something too complex, too proud, too full of itself. Systems should be like homes, simple, protected, with a back door for emergencies. Not fortresses no one can escape when they crumble." Silence, then a nod. From him, then another, until the tension broke. But Dana wasn't convinced. After the meeting, she pulled me aside. "You think this will last?" she hissed. "You'll always be the cleaning lady, even if you wear a new badge." I didn't respond. I just walked past her, toward the elevators, toward something that wasn't just a promotion. It was a battle. 2 weeks later, I was invited to a private dinner at Mr. Lansing's house. It wasn't an ordinary invitation. Only his most trusted inner circle ever set foot there. When I arrived, the estate looked like something out of a magazine. Stone walls, long glass windows, and silence that cost millions. He greeted me himself. "Elisa, come in." Inside, everything was pristine. His wife, elegant and kind-eyed, offered me wine. I declined. After dinner, he asked me to stay back. "There's something I need to show you." We went into his study. He pulled a drawer, slid out a thick folder, and placed it in front of me. "I had our tech team trace your son's original code," he said. Turns out, he was listed in the early documents, then erased, intentionally. My heart stopped. "Erased?" I whispered. He nodded. "By a former partner, who took credit, built his career on it." I opened the folder. There it was, my son's name, buried in early drafts, then scratched out in later copies. The signature on the deletion. Dana's uncle. Mr. Lansing leaned forward. I fired him 3 years ago, but Dana, I didn't know she had any involvement until now. I clenched my fists. The same woman who mocked me, who tried to humiliate me, was standing on the shoulders of my dead child. "What do you want to do?" he asked. Tears welled in my eyes. Not of sadness, of fury, of justice begging to be seen. "I want his name restored," I said. "I want every record corrected. I don't want money. I want the truth." He nodded slowly. "You'll have it." That night, I didn't sleep. The past had caught fire, and I was no longer the cleaner. I was the reckoning. The next morning, everything changed. A company-wide statement was issued. Mr. Lansing himself read it during a live stream. He spoke with gravity. Years ago, a brilliant young mind named Rafael Ruiz created a foundational system for this company's security. His contribution was hidden, denied, and buried. Today, we correct that. I stood alone in the server room as his name echoed through the speakers. Rafael Ruiz will be credited posthumously as co-architect of the system that saved this company. It hit me like a storm. Dana didn't show up that day. By noon, news broke that she had submitted her resignation. A quiet one, no headlines, no press releases, just vanished. Some whispered that she had threatened legal action. Others said Mr. Lansing had made sure she'd never work in finance again. I didn't ask. I didn't need revenge. I had justice. Later that afternoon, 2 women from the IT department approached me. "Ms. Elisa," one said shyly, "I was trained by Rafael years ago. He was kind, smart. I'm so sorry for what happened." The other handed me a printed article. They added him to the official system documentation. Every employee will see his name. I pressed the paper to my chest and closed my eyes. At home, I placed it next to his photo. "You're not forgotten anymore, mijo." My phone buzzed. A message from Mr. Lansing. "Tomorrow's meeting is yours. Lead it. You've earned it." I took a deep breath. The room felt warmer, lighter. Not because everything was perfect, but because the truth had spoken, and the silence that once buried my son's name was gone. I didn't sleep the night before the meeting. I kept pacing, rehearsing in my head what I'd say. I wasn't trained for this. I had no degree, no certifications, just scars, memories, and a fierce will that refused to die. At 7:58 a.m., I entered the boardroom. But this time, they stood up when I walked in. I placed my notes on the table, adjusted my glasses, and looked around. "We're rebuilding," I began. "Not just systems, but trust, integrity, and clarity. No more hiding talent, no more prideful shortcuts. We'll do this the right way or not at all." The room stayed quiet, but I saw heads nodding. Slowly, surely. I presented a new protocol, simple, secure, inspired by what my son once drew on a napkin during dinner. One of the executives, a gray-haired man who had ignored me for years, raised his hand. "Elisa, this is genius." No one laughed. No one doubted. After the meeting, Dana's old assistant approached me. "I just wanted to say thank you," she said, "for not letting bitterness win." I smiled. Bitterness is heavy. I carried it for too long. She blinked fast, holding back tears. That evening, I took the long way home, passed by the small cafe where Rafael used to meet his friends to talk code and dreams. I ordered his favorite drink, black coffee, no sugar, and sat by the window. I looked up at the sky, not to ask for more, just to say thank you. I thought of the verse he loved. "Weeping may last through the night, but joy comes in the morning." It had taken years, but morning had finally come. 2 weeks later, a national banking conference invited Mr. Lansing to speak, but he declined. Instead, he nominated me. Elisa Ruiz is the future, he told the committee, and she carries a story this industry needs to hear. When they called to confirm, I almost said no. I wasn't a speaker. I was just me. But something inside whispered, "You were never just a cleaner." The night before the event, I returned to the office to prepare. I walked through the halls alone, touching the walls I once scrubbed. Every corner held memories of silence, of being invisible. Now, my face was on the employee bulletin. From cleaner to chief systems consultant, the janitor from the night shift approached me. "Miss Elisa," he said softly, "my daughter watched the live stream when you fixed that system. She wants to study computer science now. Said you made her believe she could." I swallowed the lump in my throat. Tell her I believe it, too. I spent the rest of the night writing my speech, not about systems, but about worth, about the quiet people no one sees, the ones who hold broken places together with their bare hands and silent prayers. I ended with a question. What genius have we missed simply because it wore the wrong shoes? When I finally closed my notebook, I knew this wasn't about me anymore. It was about every overlooked soul walking through hallways they were never invited to lead. But tomorrow, they would hear us. The stage lights were blinding. Hundreds of people filled the auditorium, investors, CEOs, engineers, media, all waiting for a name they didn't recognize to appear. Elisa Ruiz. I walked up slowly. No heels, no suit. Just a simple black dress and my son's pendant hanging close to my heart. The moderator whispered, "Nervous?" I smiled. I've faced worse than microphones. I stood at the podium. I was a cleaning lady in this very industry for over a decade, invisible to most of you. But I watched, I listened, and I remembered. They shifted in their chairs. 2 months ago, your systems crashed. 22 experts failed. I fixed it. Not because I'm special, but because someone gave me the tools. My son, Rafael Ruiz. I clicked to the next slide. His face filled the screen, smiling, bright-eyed, full of dreams. He built the very system that saved your wealth, and he died, never seeing his name on it. Gasps. I continued. He was erased because he wasn't connected, because his name wasn't important enough. But truth always finds its way back. I spoke of humility, of forgotten workers, of silent brilliance crushed by titles and egos. Then I read aloud, "The last shall be first, and the first shall be last." The room fell silent. A woman in the front row wiped tears. A man in the back stood, clapping. Others followed. Within seconds, the whole auditorium was on their feet. Not for me, for the truth, for justice, for every soul who had ever been overlooked. As I stepped down, a young man grabbed my hand. "My mother's a janitor," he said, choking up. "You just gave her a voice." I didn't reply. I just held his hand. And we stood there in the light. 3 months later, I no longer carried a mop. I carried decisions. I led a small but growing team focused on system transparency and ethical innovation. We hired people from all walks of life, some with degrees, some with none, all brilliant, all once invisible. The office had changed, so had I. Mr. Lansing retired early and passed the reins to a younger, more grounded CEO. Before he left, he gave me a letter with a simple message. The right hands don't always wear gold watches. I framed it beside my son's photo. One day, after a long meeting, I returned to my desk to find a small box. Inside it, a silver plaque engraved with 5 words, Rafael Ruiz. Visionary Systems Architect. I pressed it to my heart. That evening, I visited Raphael's grave. I cleaned the stone gently, laid fresh lilies, and placed the plaque at its base. I did it, mijo. They finally see you. A breeze stirred the trees around me. Software. Almost like a breath. As I turned to leave, I whispered one last verse, one he had tattooed on his arm. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Not in gold, not in titles, but in truth, in legacy, in love that doesn't fade with time. Now, when people ask who I am, I smile. I'm Elisa Ruiz. I cleaned offices, I raised a genius, and when the world tried to bury us, God dug us out. This isn't just my story, it's ours. And if you're listening, maybe it's yours too.